Hello and welcome back to Art Journaling Basics. Today we're going to be creating a collage, and this is going to be a process video that I'm going to be dividing into 3 sections. So for this part, what you're going to need is either your sketchbook or a nice piece of scrap paper that's a decent size that you can glue onto your sketchbook. We're going to be needing some pieces of scrapbook paper, different pieces of scrap, book pages, all different kinds of things that either have images or points of interest to you that you would like to use. And we're going to pretty much, as you see me doing here, is tearing all those pieces up and just kind of building up a little stockpile. I like to do this as I'm working on my pages, but what I also do is kind of save different images and different things that either I print from the web or leftovers that I have from other projects, and I just like to store them in a nice little box. I try to keep my box little so that way I definitely have to use them. Usually when I tried doing it before with like a larger box, and I just found myself so like overflowing it and just really never getting to it. So I'm trying to work off of a smaller box this time around to see if that gives me a better result. And I just, like I said, I store all different kinds of images, things that I print offline, free printables, leftover pieces from projects, die cuts, all different kinds of things that I am not using at the moment. They go right into that box. So here I'm pretty much looking through my whole stockpile, and I'm gathering some focal points, some, like tags and just different things that have either images or interesting things to them. And I'm combining those with regular papers that I consider like background papers, things with dots, things with lines, things with repeated patterns, things of that nature. And I'm trying to build somewhat of a collage where the colors kind of complement each other. Like for instance, for something that I'm using in this case, I won't go and pull in maybe like a neon green or a neon orange, because that's really not going to necessarily complement the rest of the colors. So I'm trying to keep it somewhat like in a pastel kind of range, even though you do see like black and you do see that, but it's not like a solid piece of black paper. It's got some white to it, some gray to it, so it kind of neutrals it out. At least in my eyes, it kind of neutrals it out a little bit. So now that I've gathered my stockpile, I'm going to go ahead and divide this. I'm going to divide this into 2 sections, things with images and then background pieces. And what I mean by background pieces, these are like fillers. These are the papers that you layer in between your images, and you use to more or less fill up the space, fill up the void. Okay. Now that we've got that ready to go, we're going to start building our center cluster. I like to work in the center. At least for this one, I'm going to be working mostly in the center area, and I'm going to be building my cluster from the inside out. So you'll kind of see me just going through random pieces, and in this stage, you just want to get some paper down. The more you glue down the paper, then the better it'll become for you. Now, I'm using 2 different types of glues for this, but you can use any glue that you have. I'm using my embellishment glue, which is a glue that I purchased at the Dollar Tree. Everybody has seen me more or less use it, and I've spoken about that glue 100 times. And I'm also using a matte medium. And what you see me doing here is kind of pushing out the air bubbles, which is why I'm using that palette knife. It's more or less to just push out the air bubbles. But you can use a credit card or any kind of plastic card, those key cards, anything that has a nice sturdy straight edge that you can go ahead and push against the paper, just to kind of get that glue nice and spread out and also remove all the little bubbles. Now if you like texture, or if you're okay with texture, then you don't necessarily have to worry too much about that. I'm just trying to get these down as flat as possible. So I'm going to be adding all different kinds of things. Those are some die cuts that I had left over. Those are like border die cuts, and I'm pretty much just tearing them down and just using bits and pieces of them here and there, just to add texture, and also again just to fill up different areas. And that's more or less what the main goal of collaging is. It's to kind of fill things up and create somewhat of a mosaic using paper, and just create a really nice pattern. At the beginning, it's always about just filling it in, filling in some of that void. And as you start going towards, let's say, your second layer of adding additional bits and pieces, then everything starts to make a little bit more sense. And then you'll start kind of, without even realizing, you start picking like, okay, I need a piece here, I'll need a piece there. Those things do tend to happen a little bit more natural as you start building and building and building. I personally do not do many collages, but they are a fun activity to do, and it's a great way to use up some of those scraps, especially for some of those beautiful papers. And like you see, it doesn't matter if they've been, if they're partially damaged. Let's say you used a hand punch or one of those like Martha Stewart punches, and you have like this really weird shape. That's fine. Use that up. Glue that down. You can always layer something on top of it. And it's almost like playing peekaboo. Some things are gonna show, some things are not gonna show. But that, again, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. The things that will show at the end, your very top and final layer, is really gonna make the difference, and it's gonna come out beautiful no matter what you do. This is all about playing. So here I'm now starting to incorporate some of the images that I have, and again, incorporating some images and incorporating some papers that I consider to be like background pieces. And by dividing them into two stockpiles, it kind of helps me to, kind of see them a little bit better and just add different things here and there wherever I feel that it needs it. And this is very intuitive, you guys. There's really not much planning, at least on my end, when it comes to creating this collage. It was just kind of let it flow and just pull bits and pieces here. Do you have too much black on one side, then kind of go towards the other side. Your mind will kind of naturally make certain selections for you. Just let yourself go with the flow. Don't overthink it too much. There's many different ways of creating collages. You can use the same color in many different shades and create a collage that way. You could do it two colors in many different shades. There's so many different things that you can do. I really enjoyed this process, and I'm very glad to be able to bring this kind of series to you guys, so that you guys can see that there are so many different things that you can do with your pieces of scrap paper and just different kinds of things. There's more than one way to create art journal pages. There's so many different ways, you guys, and they're all equally fun. And you'll discover which one is the one that you like the most, which is why I've kind of decided to do this art journaling basics, and kind of focus on just regular art journaling, and then focus on collaging, which is what I'm doing now. And then lastly, I'm going to be focusing on mixed media, so that hopefully I give you guys a nice breakdown of, at least for what, in my opinion, the three basic, ways of creating art journals are. Even though how you create them is not necessarily in the most basic way, but just the three kind of genres, in my opinion, of what art journaling is. And that way, hopefully, you'll find something that you'll really enjoy out of the three processes, and give it a try and give it a go. So here I'm using one of the little tags that I have printed out, and I've gone ahead and passed through some string, because you can always do that. What's awesome about collaging in general is that the fact that you don't have to necessarily use paper. You can also incorporate fabrics. You can incorporate many different things. It's very similar to like creating a scrapbook layout, where you'll get certain pieces, certain key pieces, but you'll also incorporate, let's say, lace or fabrics and different things like that. So all of these things in general kind of blend into each other's worlds. One thing can lead to another. Like in mixed media, for instance, it's like a free-for-all. You can do it all. You can add everything. So kind of my idea is to build you up to the point where you kind of understand how it all kind of works together, and see the similarities in each of the processes, and see that at the end of the day, it's really not that difficult, and you really do not need to have any certain level of I guess artsy know-how. You can be very intuitive and still have a lot of fun. And you don't necessarily need to learn how to draw, you guys. You don't need to necessarily learn how to paint. There's many different things that you can do without necessarily having those particular skills. Something like this, for instance, there's no need to draw unless you want to draw out your own pieces, but there's no real need to draw. There's no real need to know how to do how to paint or anything like that. You're just pretty much creating a paper mosaic. You're just layering paper on top of paper on top of paper. And as you can see, already the image itself is looking really nice, just with all the different things that are kind of happening. And what I like to do is that if I'm adding something in the top, then I'll also try to add it in the bottom and somehow balance it out that way. So if I add one color in one spot, then I'll go all the way across the other end and add a color, just to kind of keep it balanced. So as you saw, we're going to be doing some stamping. So go ahead and grab yourself 2 or 3 stamps that are, you know, pretty much useful for creating backgrounds, and just go ahead and fill in all of those empty spaces and all of those empty voids. Once we're done with this part of the process, then this part of the video will be done, and then I'm gonna upload this for you guys to go ahead and check out and hopefully follow along. And you'll also I'll start working on the next video so that I'll upload that as well, and you guys are gonna have pretty much the completed page sometime today. So very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys create. And again, just to touch a little bit on this, all you want to do is pretty much fill in all the empty spaces, and feel free to go ahead and also stamp a little bit onto the collage itself just to kind of bring it all together. Just don't overdo it to the point where you can't really see what the collage is in the background. This is just all getting that first layer, that background layer kind of ready, and that's what this is focusing on. So I do hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. I do hope that you have enjoyed this process, and I look forward to seeing what you guys create. Remember, if you're going to be following along, which is what I'm hoping that you will do, remember to use the title Pound Art Journal 123 in your title. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and on to the next step.